In a kingdom far away, there was once a poor king who ruled with nothing but an empty treasury and a dying heart. His prince, however, was as rich in spirit as he was poor in pocket. Together, they lived beneath the sprawling branches of a gnarled old shrub, for it was all they could call their own. The king would spend his days pacing the dusty earth, lost in thought, while his son would frolic about, chasing butterflies and making friends with the various woodland creatures that called their makeshift home their own. It was on one such carefree day that a haggard old woman, her clothes tattered and her hair wild, stumbled into their clearing, coughing and wheezing. She collapsed at the base of the shrub, clutching at her withered chest. The prince, ever the gentle soul, rushed to her side, offering her water from a nearby stream. But it was not water that the old woman sought. It was vengeance. Her name, it turned out, was Mab, and she was a powerful witch who had been wronged by the king's ancestors long ago. Enraged by the audacity of this poor soul who dared to live off the fat of the land, she cursed him then and there, dooming him to a slow, painful death. The prince, however, was spared, for he had shown her kindness when she needed it most as the words of the curse left her lips. A chill wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves of the shrub and sending a shiver down the spines of both king and prince. "Your father," Mab cackled, "shall wither and die, and all that you have built shall crumble around you." With that, she vanished into the trees, leaving nothing but a faint trace of acrid smoke in her wake. The king, already weakened by the curse, stumbled to his knees, clutching at his chest in agony. It was then that the prince realized the true cost of his father's actions, and the importance of putting himself first. For days, the prince nursed his father back to health, doing all that he could to ease his suffering. But try as he might, he could not slow the inexorable march of the curse. As the king grew weaker, the prince found himself torn between his duty to his father and the need to save himself. He knew that if he stayed, both he and his father would surely perish. One night, under the light of a full moon, the prince made his decision. He gathered his few meager possessions and, without a backward glance, fled into the darkness, leaving behind everything that he had ever known. His heart heavy with grief, he wandered aimlessly through the forest, unsure of where he was going or what awaited him. But he knew that he had to keep moving, had to keep searching, if he was to have any hope of finding a way to break the curse and save his father. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The prince wandered farther and farther from his home, crossing great rivers and traversing vast mountain ranges, all the while seeking wisdom and guidance from the creatures of the forest. They told him tales of ancient sorcerers and powerful artifacts, of hidden cities and lost treasures. But none of them held the key to breaking the curse that plagued his father. Weary and discouraged, the prince found himself one day at the edge of a great and ancient forest, its trees towering overhead like great sentinels of time. There, he met an old hermit who, it was said, possessed the knowledge to undo even the darkest of curses. Taking a deep breath, the prince mustered all of his courage and approached the old man, hoping against hope that he would have the answer he sought. The old hermit, his face lined with the wisdom of countless years, regarded the prince with a solemn gaze. "Ah, young one," he rasped, "I can see the pain in your eyes, the weight of your heart. You seek a way to break the curse that afflicts your father. Do you not?" The prince nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "Then listen closely, for what I tell you now may be the only hope you have." The old hermit went on to tell the prince of a hidden city deep within the forest. a place where the most powerful sorcerers and wise women of the land had gathered to safeguard a great artifact known as the Heartstone. It was said that the Heartstone possessed the power to break any curse, no matter how dark or powerful, and that whoever held it could bend the world to their will. The only problem, the old man cautioned, was that the city and the Heartstone were guarded by terrible beasts and ancient traps, and only the bravest and most foolhardy of adventurers had ever dared to attempt to reach them. The prince, undeterred, thanked the old hermit for his wisdom and set off immediately into the forest, determined to find the hidden city and retrieve the Heartstone. Days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, as he fought his way through dense undergrowth and treacherous terrain, facing down fearsome creatures and overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But with each victory, his determination only grew stronger, and his belief in the power of the Heartstone to save his father became unshakable. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he emerged from the forest into a vast clearing, where a shimmering city of gold and jade rose before him. The air was thick with magic, and the sound of chanting filled the air. The prince knew that he had arrived at his destination. With a steady breath, he steeled himself and marched forward, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. As he approached the city, he saw that it was surrounded by a maze of impenetrable walls and moats, guarded by terrible beasts and ancient traps. Undaunted, the prince began to navigate the labyrinth, using the knowledge he had gained from the creatures of the forest and his own cunning. He faced down fearsome beasts and solved puzzles that had stumped countless adventurers before him, all the while feeling the weight of the Heartstone growing heavier in his heart. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally reached the center of the maze, where the Heartstone rested atop a pedestal, glowing with an otherworldly light. As he reached out to take it, a sudden voice boomed through the air. "Who dares to challenge the guardians of the Heartstone?" The prince turned to see an ancient sorcerer, his face hidden behind a hood of shadow, standing before him. "I have come to save my father," the prince replied, his voice steady, "and I will do whatever it takes to break the curse that afflicts him." The sorcerer studied the prince for a long moment, and then, with a nod, stepped aside. "Very well," he said. "The choice is yours. You may take the Heartstone and attempt to break the curse. But be warned. The power within it is great. And unchecked, it could prove as dangerous to you and your father as the curse itself." The prince took a deep breath and grasped the Heartstone, feeling its power coursing through him. With a cry of determination, he turned and raced back through the maze, his heart filled with hope and purpose. Days later, he returned to his father's side, the Heartstone glowing brightly in his hand. The king, his eyes dim and his body weak, looked up at his son and saw the power within him. With a weak smile, he reached out and took the Heartstone, feeling its energy flow into him. Slowly, the curse began to lift, and color returned to his cheeks. As the last vestiges of the curse faded away, the prince collapsed to the ground, exhausted but triumphant. The king, now fully restored, embraced his son, tears streaming down his face. "My son," he said, "you have saved us both. Now, together, we shall rule our kingdom once more." And so, with the power of love and sacrifice, the curse was broken, and the kingdom was restored to its former glory. The prince and the king ruled wisely and justly, their hearts forever united by the bond of blood and the strength of their unbreakable love. And the forest, once more, was filled with the sound of laughter and the songs of birds. As the people of the kingdom lived in peace and harmony, their lives forever changed by the selfless act of one brave prince.